Welcome everyone to another episode of the Week in Italian Startup. Great episode, this one, as start in 2026. And let's kick off by actually looking back at 2025 in Italy. And Nicolò has had some very interesting data and insight to share, especially in the latest newsletter. So let's start from there. Nick, what do you think?
Well, I think that last year was a great year in many ways, with a very good ending actually. So a very good Q4. So we'll see in the numbers. I'm very excited about what lays ahead this year. So I still not, I still not don't have clear ideas whether this would be the years. So last year was the year of agents. How about this year? Is it the year of AGI? So I'm getting lost now. So,
Yeah.
but from initial news, it seems it is the year of AGI. If you believe the posts.
Yeah, that there is a chance for that. There is a chance for that. Yeah, no, that's it's gonna be another ride, or probably it's gonna take like a swift turn, and then everything is gonna be surprising again, and we just cannot, anticipate anything happening ever. That's all.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So back to
Okay.
us.
Yeah, starting actually from the overall fundraise in 2025. So this has been one of the greatest year beside 2022. So for the past 5 years, 2025 is ranking basically second. What is interesting is that given your first graph, and I encourage people to look into Nicolò newsletter, you can definitely see how 2022 was, of course, exceptional, outlier, but then we have a strong, of course, reverse to the mean. And 2025 was actually when there was a nice bump up of the fundraise happening overall. So that's a good news. That gives us basically a positive trend that is solid and is actually increasing, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I agree with you. That's the absolute number in the year. So that's a good indicator that things are moving somehow. So hopefully they will become structural in some way. And then the second data point that's interesting to look into is the quarter by quarter data. So a reminder, I record the rounds based on the dates they're announced. So we have no idea when they happened. So they might have happened months before I record them. So this is a huge caveat. But having said that, so Q4 2025 was the best quarter on record in my newsletter since 2022. Um, and that's super interesting. So that means it's not a matter of absolute number of rounds announced, but it's a matter of the size of the rounds. So we had several decamillion or 100 million rounds announced in the single quarter. That's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, talking about quarter and seeing the different data, I don't think we can kind of pin down a pattern over here. I mean, some years they start, with a bang at the beginning of Q1. Some other years are better in Q3, but then, Q4 last year was one of the best. So tough to say. It would be interesting to see if there is like some cyclicality here, given other macroeconomic indicators. But face value, I think, is very difficult to find a proper pattern here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I have not. I can make some hypotheses about how things happened. For example, usually Q4 was a bit slow. If you take a look at the news, um, so it may be that there were fewer rounds during Q3 that summer, and then fewer announcements during Q4, and the announcements move on to Q1 of the following year. And then if you see, other than 2023, we have a good 2024 and 2026 in terms of announcement in Q1. So it's there are decisions around announcements that they go beyond. Oh, we closed the round. We need to tell the world. So, uh, but still, so
Interesting. Oh, fantastic. And like other years, what we've seen is that, of course, some mega rounds that are basically raising the average overall of the fundraise, but that's true for every single VC ecosystem, I would say. So I don't think we should be at all surprised by that, but just glad that mega rounds actually happen. It's good for the entire ecosystem. So as you mentioned, so the 10 biggest round basically include Exane, A Avantgarde Bio, Nanophoria, and what is interesting is also some robotics started already like raising substantial amount. So in this case was generative bionics. And then of course, number one, the usual suspect, Bendingspoons, which has been like helping 2025 to do some of the most impressive fundraise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Regarding generative bionics, they also presented the first generation of humanoid robot at the CES of Las Vegas in partnership with AMD. And that's interesting, right?
That's cool. That's cool.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, of course, basically this year CES closed like a few weeks ago, and the main thing was maybe three things: AI, robotics, and some form of VR, XR, like tools. Those are some of the major trends right now, and Italy is already like perceptive about these things. So that's good news. You know, I remember times when Italy kind of lagged behind everything happening in the West Coast, but now the gap is always like shrinking and shrinking. So that's good news for sure.
Yeah, well, I have to say that the generative bionics round was a very happy piece of news. So in terms of being having a play in the human robotics market, I can say we are an important player in the AI space, in particular in the infrastructure or uh, main models market. So we're probably still missing that piece of the puzzle, as far as I know. So happy to be corrected. But in the rest, you're right. So we've been following closely the evolution of the market, and we have players that are raising and operating in these spaces. And of course, biotech. So by biotech, we have a history. So we are an important player worldwide.
Perfect. Let's talk about investors. So, as expected, CDP is the most active by the number, by the single basically investment, with around like 60 rounds, being present in 60 round, followed by Vento 18, Azimut 12. Basically, this is the top three, and then it's you guys from Primo Capital 10, Club degli Investitori 9, and Italian Founders Fund 9. So a few things here, I would say. So I'll just kick off with one consideration, which is, of course, Italy is institutional led, is a public institutional led. CDP is still some of the biggest investor in the ecosystem, but at the same time we have some newly entrants like IFF, Italian Founders Fund, which have been like extremely effective and quick to actually affirm their presence into the market. So we have this kind of bifurcation, right? So the institutional money, public money, but at the same time very, very active, let me call it micro VC in a certain sense, which are moving extremely fast.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that. So macro VC is the interesting time. So I mean, it's a sub 100 million funds that move at the speed of an American or a UK fund, and that's super interesting in terms of ecosystem and the importance that they have. As you mentioned, CDP of course is the main player. They have many direct funds, so they tend to be present in many rounds. Um, and then private operators. So Vento, last year they lined out their strategy. If you're an Italian founder anywhere in the world and you're doing something super excellent, we are in. And this is, the plastic example of them maintaining their promise. And of course, angel clubs. So Club degli Investitori is very present. So they've been doing a lot of deals. That's super interesting because it's a very strong club.
So let me throw to you a little provocation, and by saying that 2025 confirms that the Italian market is still institution-led and not market-led, given the different volume of capital allocated. How would you react to that?
You're probably right. I would say in many ways, and that's still okay. So you don't create a venture capital ecosystem overnight in terms of having operators with experience. And if you are a player such as CDP and they are willing to create operators, but they want operators with knowing what they're doing, it takes time. And in some sense, they're filling the gap because there is a competitive pressure to be present and operating in specific areas. So they are mandated to invest in AI, to invest in cybersecurity. You can't wait for operators to come up with good knowledge, good ideas about investing in AI, and it will take a couple of years. So I understand the decision to push with the strategic national investment lines and interests into, I've got the money, I've got the capabilities, let's push. On the other hand, you also see the effects of them supporting the creation of new funds. So Italian Founders Fund, they raised from CDP as well, actually this year. So they started out without CDP, and CDP is supporting them going onwards. And there are other players that recently started that they are not in the top of the rankings in terms of volumes because they started more recently and they have maybe different strategies. That makes sense. But there is an ecosystem that's growing. So hopefully next year there will be more funds with more operations and more presence into our rankings. CDP will be there for quite some time still. So I think so this year as well. Next year probably. The great goal is to be, I hope, less and less important for the ecosystem, but still, it will take time.
Definitely. I think you're definitely spot on. It's tough to actually judge these kind of dynamics in terms of ecosystem creation because you have ecosystems which are really successful with a sovereign fund. Take Singapore, for example. They've been extremely successful in tech investing through their sovereign fund. That's kind of an outlier sort of example. But of course, the traditional sort of venture ecosystem is for sure market-led with non-public money in general. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye. But it can work both ways, I would say. So it's very interesting, actually.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That would take a long time to have a full conversation on this topic. So it's
100%.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit of statistics. So 244 rounds total, 2025, half labeled pre-seed and seed in the different media outlets, with a median of 2.1 million euro and an average of 6.6. So generally rounds tend to be on the seed, like European Series A sort of space on average. In general, the distribution, I would say. And that's realistic. I mean, Italy's a little bit like that. And I think that's definitely spot on. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So just a few caveats here as well. So this labeling of the rounds, I didn't do it by hand. So with my personal assistants, AI-based Gemini, I don't know whether you know him, who labeled the rounds. Sometimes the news articles mentioned the rounds, sometimes they didn't. But in general, if it's labeled pre-seed or seed, it was labeled pre-seed or seed in the round. So there is a lot of, if you take a look at the data set, I've got a lot of early stage rounds that my friend Gemini decided to label this way because then there wasn't any other information. So probably there are more real precedent seeds in the database than the ones labeled. So probably that means that as an ecosystem, we are still have a higher deployment in the earlier phases, and that's that makes sense. That's fine. So it will take a couple of years for probably things to rebalance a bit upwards and bring us in line with the other ecosystems. So apologies, I had to give this caveat.
No, that's fine. That's super precise. No, that's definitely interesting. All right, so no, that's a great insight, Nick. Thank you for putting that together. That's actually, I wanted to say Nick is one of the first that actually come out with this kind of data. So that's definitely interesting. And let's see how other reports, which as you mentioned will come out soon, are kind of aligning or disaligning. But calculations of course can take different turns. But the overall sense I think is definitely spot on, and that's where the market is heading. All right, moving directly to some of the rounds happening. So let's talk about actually like a few rounds, which in a certain sense, it feels like they're setting the tone for what 2026 is going to be. So one in healthcare, one in AI, and then one in robotics. Let's talk about a few of them and see what is happening, starting from actually health. So Lever Bio, cancer immunotherapy startup, extending its seed round to 9 million. So raising from Claris Venture, Ora Global, Club degli Investitori, and YAG, Italian Angel for Growth. So biotech, of course, Italy has been like a sweet tooth for biotech. So those are some of the big rounds that we see, and it's been repeating that for years now. Every time there is like big bio rounds. What is interesting is that this is basically a high impact academic project turned into startups. So that's another successful example on how tech transfer can actually be successful, I would say. What is your take on this?
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, this is not my market, but what I can confirm is that Italy has a history in biotech. So we've got a strong infrastructure, strong research. So there is a very mature market. So tackling important problems. So like in the case of Lever Bio. And I have to mention that Lever Bio is actually a 2025 round. It was announced back in December. So it is included in the 2025 statistics.
Awesome. We like precision. That's good. All right, talking about AI, let's talk about quickly Principled Intelligence, AI alignment startup raising 1.85 million in a pre-seed round from Polo Nazionale di Trasferimento Tecnologico, Black Sheep, and Eden Venture. Eden Venture being part of Italian's Angel for Growth, so YAG in general. And of course, I mean, AI is probably expected to have like a lot of rounds this year. Let's see what's happening. What I really like was the fact that this is kind of a very specific use of AI in enterprise. So a big problem with AI and general models. And then Nick, of course, I would love to hear your insight on this. Is the problem that we have a generic model, generic LLMs. Some better than others have guardrails, but in an enterprise setting, a lot of them, they don't have enough boundaries that align with the general, I would say, compliance within the corporations. So corporations are now like trying to play with their data set and how to use them in a way which is, insightful, but at the same time extremely safe. So, if anyone in the company asks for, sensitive data, you don't want the LLM to spit it out. So there are like people working in this space, and this team is exactly on this kind of project.
Yeah, absolutely agree with what you said. The problem of alignment, in some sense, is key here. Also think about not just the industry in general. I think about specific verticals. Think about health. That's becoming a topic now, right? So with ChatGPT, including health support and they had to create specific guardrails and isolate an environment for the ChatGPT health environment for this reason. So you really want to have ways to align them all as much as possible, whatever the line is doing with whatever are the ethics principles and guidelines in the ecosystem. So this is the play here. And there are probably some specific verticals in the market where this is particularly important.
Awesome. And I would say, as we've been mentioning this for a while now, there is a strong case for small language models with very particular application. And this is kind of it's a proof toward that direction. So there is space for sure for generalistic model with broad application, but the small models also have like a strong role in specific settings. And I feel it's kind of it's definitely like moving toward that direction in a very solid path. What's your take on this?
That AGI might not be just one model only in the world. It might be a more jagged thing in some sense. We are seeing a glance of this potential jagged future. So I
Absolutely.
agree.
That's cool. All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining to this episode, and I'll see you and all the listener next week.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. Thank you so much. Welcome back. So you're back in 2026, and ciao, everybody. See you in a week.